1. They envy the fire you didn't let life put out. Most people crumble when life applies pressure. But you took the hits, kept walking, and turned that pain into power. They see your scars and wonder how you're still standing. What they don't know is that your strength was forged in silence. They envy your endurance, because deep down, they quit where you kept going. 2. Your discipline exposes their excuses. You don't talk about what you're going to do, you show up and get it done. And that bothers people. Why? Because your consistency puts a spotlight on their complacency. You make the grind look good, and they hate that their laziness has no hiding place when you walk in the room. 3. Your confidence isn't arrogance, it's clarity. You don't need to beg for validation. You know who you are, and that unsettles people still trying to figure themselves out. They envy your confidence, not because it's loud, but because it's real. You don't need applause to believe in your purpose, and that threatens the ones performing just to be seen. 4. You carry peace they can't manufacture. When you walk in, your presence speaks before your mouth opens. You don't chase clout. You don't need chaos. You move with peace because your foundation is deeper than attention. They envy that because all the noise in their life still can't drown out the silence in their soul, but yours is anchored. 1. They envy the fire you didn't let life put out. There's something powerful about a person who still burns with purpose, even after walking through seasons designed to extinguish them. When life has thrown everything it could, disappointment, betrayal, rejection, failure, and you still show up, still believe, still fight, people start to notice. But they don't always applaud. Some people don't admire your fire, they envy it, because deep down, they know they would have given up where you kept going. See, it's easy to talk about success. It's easy to admire resilience from a distance. But when someone's survival makes others question their own surrender, envy creeps in. Not because of what you have, but because of what you overcame. Not because of the applause you receive, but because of the battles you fought when nobody was watching. You didn't become strong by accident. Life didn't give you a pass, it gave you pain, it gave you pressure, it gave you people who left, seasons that broke you, and trials that tried to define you. But somehow, you kept the fire. You didn't let the coldness of life freeze the warmth of your heart. You didn't let bitterness replace belief. You didn't let setbacks steal your spirit. That's what they envy. They envy the way you kept walking when your legs were shaking. They envy the way you smiled when your heart was breaking. They envy the way you kept faith alive when fear had every reason to win. They don't understand how you did it, and that confusion turns into resentment, because deep down, your existence challenges their excuses. You weren't born with an easier road, you just refused to stop on the hard one. That fire inside you didn't come from comfort. It came from crying yourself to sleep and waking up stronger. It came from hearing no over and over and still knocking on the door. It came from being overlooked, underestimated, and underappreciated, yet still showing up as if you were already chosen. It came from seasons where you had to encourage yourself because no one else was clapping. It came from days when quitting seemed logical, but purpose whispered louder than pain. That's what built your fire. It wasn't the applause, it was the absence of it. It wasn't being celebrated, it was being rejected. It wasn't the easy seasons, it was the storms you survived in silence. That's what makes people uncomfortable. They see your strength and assume it came easy. They don't see the nights you cried, the friends who left, the deals that fell through, the dreams that almost died in your hands. They see the outcome, not the process. But the fire you carry wasn't handed to you, it was built through every painful moment that tried to extinguish you. And while some will respect it, others will resent it. You don't have to do anything wrong for people to envy you. Just keep standing when they expected you to fall. Just keep showing up when they thought you'd be broken. Just keep shining when the darkness tried to swallow you. That's all it takes. You see, some people are uncomfortable around fire because they've grown used to their own smoke. They've settled for a life of smoldering dreams and half-hearted pursuits. So when someone walks in burning with purpose, they feel exposed. Your fire becomes a mirror. Not because you're trying to outshine them, but because your very existence proves more is possible, and that truth stings when you've settled for less. You didn't survive for show. You didn't stay strong to make a statement. You just refused to die in a place that was supposed to destroy you. And that decision to keep going, to keep believing, to keep building, that's what separates you. That's what makes the envy rise. Because you kept the fire, you guarded it when everything around you tried to snuff it out. You held it close when others let theirs go cold. You protected your vision when doubt was the loudest voice in the room. That inner flame, that relentless belief that you were meant for more, eats what brought you here. And it's what unsettles those who gave up on theirs. People envy what they don't understand, and they fear what they can't control. They don't understand how you're still burning, how you still dream, how you still have peace. They can't control the fact that your fire isn't tied to their opinions or approval. And so they respond the only way their insecurities allow them to, through criticism, silence, or subtle sabotage. But that's not your concern, because the fire wasn't for them anyway. Your fire is your responsibility. It's your light in dark places. It's your heat when the world goes cold. It's the evidence that you're still here, still fighting, still alive. There's a reason you didn't let life put it out. That flame represents everything you've survived. It tells the story of every moment you could have quit but chose courage. It burns with the strength of every no you turned into a next. It carries the warmth of every broken piece you turned into fuel. People may never fully understand it, but they will feel it. You walk in rooms and shift the atmosphere not because you try to, but because you carry something real. And real fire changes the environment. It demands attention. It can't be ignored. And that's what unsettles people. They're used to fake. They're used to empty words and hollow dreams. But you're the real thing. You've got the marks to prove it. You've been through the furnace, and you came out refined, not ruined. That kind of transformation threatens those who've been hiding in comfort zones. It challenges people who've accepted mediocrity. It reminds them that quitting isn't the only option, that rising is still possible. And not everyone wants to be reminded. Some would rather resent you than rise themselves. But don't dim your fire to keep others comfortable. Don't shrink just because your flame makes others feel small. You weren't built to blend in. You were built to burn with purpose. And if that unsettles people who've chosen to settle for less, so be it. Your fire isn't arrogance, it's evidence. Evidence that pain doesn't have to be permanent. Evidence that rejection doesn't have to define you. Evidence that brokenness can still birth something beautiful. And here's the truth they won't say out loud. They don't envy your possessions. They envy your perseverance. They don't envy your platform. They envy your process. They don't envy your blessings. They envy the belief it took to hold on when everything screamed, let go. They envy the fire, because that fire tells a story of survival that silence could never express. It shows that you didn't just go through it, you grew through it. And that's the difference. Some people go through the fire and come out bitter. You went through the fire and came out blazing. You didn't just endure the heat, you became it. You became the kind of person whose presence carries warmth, clarity, and truth. And truth always shakes up what's fake. Light always exposes what's been hiding in the shadows. That's why your existence is disruptive. Not because you're loud, but because you're lit. And people who live in darkness will always be uncomfortable with fire. But here's the good news. Fire doesn't ask for permission, it just burns. It doesn't wait for applause, it just shines. It doesn't need validation, it already knows its worth. That's who you are now. You don't need to explain your fire to people who've never walked through your flames. You don't need to apologize for the way you've been refined. You don't need to dim what took you years of struggle to ignite. Your job is to keep burning, to keep moving, to keep building, and let the fire speak for itself. Because it does. Your fire tells the story of strength that can't be faked, of faith that can't be shaken, of dreams that couldn't be destroyed. And yes, some people will secretly envy that. Not because of who you are now, but because of what you had to conquer to become it. So keep the fire, fan the flame, guard it, feed it. Let it light the way for others who've forgotten how to hope. Let it warm the hearts of those who've gone cold in a world full of rejection. Let it be a symbol not of perfection, but of perseverance. They envy the fire because it's proof. Proof that pain doesn't win. Proof that darkness doesn't last. Proof that when the world tried to break you, all it did was help you burn brighter. 2, your discipline exposes their excuses. People don't always hate you for what you have, they hate you for what you refuse to give up on. They won't always come out and say it, but deep inside, they resent the way you kept going. Not because they don't want you to succeed, but because your consistency reminds them of their complacency. Your discipline exposes the places in their life where they chose comfort over commitment, distraction over destiny, laziness over legacy. You didn't just get here. You built your way up when nobody was clapping. You worked while others were watching. You stayed focused when everyone else was scrolling. You woke up early, stayed up late, sacrificed temporary pleasure for permanent purpose, and now that the results are visible, the same people who weren't willing to invest are suddenly full of opinions. That's the truth nobody talks about. Discipline is quiet. It doesn't make noise. It doesn't post every step. It doesn't broadcast every sacrifice. But when the results show up, they speak loud. They walk into the room before you do. And that kind of presence makes people uncomfortable, especially when they recognize the only difference between you and them wasn't talent, wasn't opportunity, it was discipline. While they were waiting on motivation, you were moving with intention. While they were watching one more episode, you were taking one more step. While they were complaining about what they didn't have, you were building with what little you did. That's what set you apart, not the looks, not the connections, the discipline. And now that it's paying off, you're a mirror they don't want to look into. Because discipline shines a light on laziness. It reveals what's possible if you stop making excuses. It calls out the lies people tell themselves. I don't have time. I don't have the resources. I'm just not ready yet. No. The truth is discipline doesn't wait on perfect conditions. It builds anyway. It shows up anyway. It makes progress, not excuses. That's why some people can't stand being around you. You're not even trying to impress them, but your lifestyle convicts theirs. Your consistency is louder than their complaints. Your growth is proof that the grind works. And not everyone wants to be reminded of what they could have been if they were willing to do what you did. They envy the fruits, but they forget the roots. They see the success, but not the sacrifice. They talk about how lucky you are, but they didn't see how lonely it got, how disciplined you had to be when nobody believed, how you had to shut down distractions, cut off comfort zones, and stay focused when nothing was happening. They weren't there when you were working weekends while they were partying. They weren't there when you turned your phone off just to get focused. They weren't there when you said no to easy options and yes to hard roads. They weren't there when you dragged yourself out of bed with no motivation, just a vision. And now that you're winning, they call it favoritism. They say, you've changed. But the truth is, you didn't change. You grew. You decided you were done living below your potential. You realized that dreams without discipline are dead weight. So you did the work. You embraced the grind. You chose long-term gain over short-term pleasure. That's what they don't understand. Discipline doesn't look glamorous in the moment. It's boring, it's repetitive, it's lonely, but it builds empires. It separates the ones who wish from the ones who work. It draws a line in the sand between the interested and the invested. And when you're on the disciplined side of that line, your life starts to look different. You start saying no to things that don't align. You start waking up early, not because it's fun, but because it's necessary. You start building habits that are boring but effective. You start carrying yourself with a sense of mission. That's when people start whispering, not because you did anything wrong, but because they're realizing they could have done the same. They're not really mad at you, they're mad at the version of themselves they never became. Your grind convicts them. Your results frustrate them. Because it's proof that it wasn't impossible, it was uncomfortable. And they chose comfort. So now they mask envy with sarcasm. They throw shade instead of support. They call you obsessed, call you rigid, call you extra. But you don't flinch because you know what it costs to live this focused. You know what it took to build this strong. You know how many nights you sacrificed to become this disciplined. You weren't chasing applause. You were chasing alignment. You weren't doing it for validation. You were doing it for vision. You weren't proving anything to them. You were proving to yourself that excuses don't belong in your future. That's the mindset that separates you. You don't wait to feel like it. You just do it. You don't let your emotions dictate your habits. You let your convictions drive your decisions. That's what makes your fire so different. It's not flashy. It's not loud, but it's relentless. And that relentless discipline is what people envy the most. They want your results, but not your routine. They want the mountaintop, but not the mountain. They want the crown, but not the cross. But you understood the assignment. You understood that every level comes with a price. And you decided to pay it with discipline, daily, silently, privately. While the world was sleeping on you, you were working on you. That's why you don't fold under pressure, you were built under pressure. That's why you don't panic in storms you've walked through worse in silence. That's why you don't need validation, your discipline has already proven you belong here. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to defend your grind. Your life is the testimony. Your results are the receipts. And the truth is, discipline doesn't scream, it speaks. It speaks through your character, through your work ethic, through your consistency, through your excellence. It speaks through how you show up when nobody's watching, through how you train when there's no stage, through how you handle success without losing your soul. That's what really stings people. Not that you're ahead, but that you earned it. Not that you're successful, but that you sacrificed for it. Not that you have more, but that you did more. You're not their enemy, but you are their reminder. That potential means nothing without discipline. That vision dies without execution. That talking about it isn't the same as walking in it. So let them whisper, let them watch, let them wonder. You weren't building for their approval anyway. You were building for purpose. You were becoming the version of yourself that doesn't flinch when it's hard, that doesn't break under pressure, that doesn't settle for average. Because you know discipline is the difference. It's the separator. It's what took you from stuck to strong, from dreaming to doing, from wishing to walking in it. And while some will secretly envy it, you're not here for applause, you're here for impact. You're here to be the example, not the excuse. You're here to lead, not to linger in mediocrity. You're here to rise, even if it means rising alone. Because discipline doesn't ask for company. It just shows up and does the work. And when you live like that, your life becomes the loudest message in the room. 3. Your confidence reminds them they settle. Confidence is not arrogance. It's not noise. It's not loudness for the sake of attention. Confidence is that silent power you carry when you know who you are, what you bring, and what you're capable of without asking for permission or waiting for applause. And that right there, that's why people feel some type of way when you walk in the room, because your confidence doesn't entertain comparison, it shuts it down. You don't compete, you command. Not by faking it, not by forcing it, but by owning the truth. You didn't get here by chance. You didn't stumble into this. You earned this. And every step you take, every word you speak, every move you make carries the weight of someone who refuses to shrink just to make other people feel comfortable in their complacency. People don't envy your success as much as they envy your certainty, your ability to walk through chaos without flinching, your refusal to doubt yourself even when they whisper about you. They don't know what to do with that kind of presence. It makes them uneasy, because deep down they remember the version of themselves that had fire and then let it die out. That's what confidence does. It makes people see themselves not who they pretend to be, not who they post to be, but who they really are. And for some, that's unbearable. Not because you've done anything to them, but because your light exposes the shadows they've learned to hide in. You didn't come for them, but your elevation confronts their stagnation. You're not trying to offend anyone. You're just no longer apologizing for your greatness. You're not trying to outshine anybody. You're just done dimming your light to match their comfort zone. You're not walking around trying to prove anything, but your existence proves that excellence is still possible, that you can walk with humility and still carry unshakable confidence, that you can be secure without being superior, bold without being boastful. That's what frustrates people who settled, because they didn't just let go of the dream, they let go of themselves. And now, every time they see you walking in purpose, it reactivates a voice they've tried to mute for years, a voice that says, you could have been more, you could have gone further, but you played it safe. Confidence will do that. It doesn't have to say a word, it just is. It's the way you walk into rooms without lowering your head, the way you speak truth even when it shakes your voice, the way you don't fold just because it's easier to agree with the crowd. You were built to stand out, not blend in. And that truth alone is enough to disturb the ones who built their lives around approval. Because when you no longer need validation, you become unstoppable. You don't flinch at criticism. You don't beg for acceptance. You walk in, own your space, and keep building. That level of inner authority is foreign to people who let fear dictate every move. That's why they envy you, because they chose silence when they should have spoken up. They chose the job instead of the calling. They chose safety instead of the stretch. And now that you're walking in what they were afraid to reach for, they mask their regret with mockery. They'll say you're too much, too intense, too sure, too focused. But that's projection, not perception. It's not about you, it's about what you remind them of. You remind them of what it looks like to keep going when it's hard. You remind them of what it means to show up with full presence. You remind them of the kind of life that happens when you stop settling for average. That kind of confidence can't be bought. It's not handed out. It's earned through seasons of uncertainty, battles with doubt, and moments where you had to bet on yourself even when nobody else would. It's forged in fire, built in silence, shaped through storms. You had to learn how to encourage yourself when support went silent. You had to build while people watched and waited for you to fail. You had to get back up after rejection and still act like the door was never closed. That's the cost of confidence, and you paid it in full. That's why you don't apologize for who you've become. You fought to become this version of yourself. The world tried to break you. People tried to box you in. Life tried to make you question your worth. But you refused to let fear have the final say. You chose to believe in something bigger. You chose to believe in you. And now, Now that you've started stepping into the fullness of who you are, you notice the shift. The air changes when you enter the room. The energy gets tense. The fake smiles surface. People speak, but they don't celebrate. They clap with quiet envy. They nod with hidden doubt. Because your confidence confronts their compromises. You're not the problem, you're just the proof. The proof that the dream is still possible. The proof that discipline works. The proof that confidence isn't a personality, it's a decision. You decided to be bold, to be seen, to speak with clarity, to walk like you belong in every room you step in. That choice made daily is what separates you from the crowd. And even if they don't say it out loud, they feel it. Some people hate what you have because they gave up on what they were supposed to build. They envy your level because they stopped climbing. They question your confidence because it's easier than questioning their comfort. But here's what they don't see. They don't see the nights you prayed with no answers. They don't see the seasons where your confidence was cracked but you kept walking. They don't see the battle you fight just to stay true to yourself in a world begging you to be fake. Your confidence wasn't born out of success. It was born out of survival, out of showing up broken but still showing up, out of losing everything and deciding not to lose yourself, out of moments where quitting felt easier, but you whispered, "Not today," and kept going anyway. That's where your power comes from choosing to rise. Not because you had everything together, but because you refused to stay down. Confidence isn't perfection. It's permission, the permission to be all of who you are, even when the world tries to silence you. And yes, people will envy that, because most have learned how to perform, not how to own. They've learned how to fit in, not how to stand out. They've learned how to chase approval, not how to stand in truth. But not you. You unlearned that. You decided the cost of living fake was too high. You stopped asking for permission to be powerful. You realized that confidence doesn't come from the crowd, it comes from the core. From a place deep inside that says, even if they don't get it, I'm still walking in it. Because confidence doesn't require confirmation, it just requires consistency. Consistency in your voice, consistency in your boundaries, consistency in your belief. You're not perfect, but you're present. You're not the most talented, but you're the most committed. You're not always loud, but when you speak, people listen because you speak from authenticity, not performance. And that's the difference. People can spot the real. And when you're real, when you're confident without needing to crush others, when you're grounded without needing to boast it, creates something people can't copy. It's not style. It's not speech. It's substance. It's the weight of someone who knows where they're headed and refuses to shrink to fit in. That kind of presence can't be taught. That kind of authority can't be bought. It's earned. And the people who secretly envy you know that. They know they had the same 24 hours, the same potential, the same shot, but they chose to shrink, to play it safe, to coast. And now, watching you walk confidently in what they abandoned is a painful reminder. But that's not your burden to carry. Your job is not to lower your voice so they feel loud. Your job is not to doubt yourself so they feel brave. Your job is to keep walking, keep building, keep showing up. Because your confidence isn't just about you, it gives permission to others who've been quieted for too long to finally rise, to finally believe again.